I stopped playing for 3 months and just started coming back. And then actually yesterday, I don't know, you know when you do something like consistently over and over and over, when you do it, it just feels natural, right? So for, in this case, my mouse movement, just last night, after about 2 or 3 weeks, finally my mouse movement feels like natural right now. But that's not the only thing. My macro is pretty weak. My I think my build orders are not that bad, but I think that my execution of them, macro specifically, is pretty poor. And then I think sometimes, like in battles or whatever, I end up like watching the fight too long when you should be multitasking, like macro or building turrets or whatever. So um, I think that's what holds me back really is macro and just watch things too long and don't end up doing anything. Also, sometimes, like specifically TVP, like my vultures will run way far ahead of my army, and then if you lose, like maybe you don't even lose any vultures, but they like all take damage. That's kind of a big deal. You kind of botch your attack. I think that's my biggest issues is that I botch attacks. Terran vs Protoss macro is kind of off, and I stare at the screen doing nothing too long. And then sometimes, for example, like you get recalled, right? In the first recall, you probably have like mines set up, but then as they explode, sometimes I don't put them down again, so then I end up dying to the second recall, just stupid stuff like that. I think that's really what holds me back. But nobody's ever told me what I do wrong, so this is just, I'm just guessing. Well, it's not really guessing, it's an educated guess. Like, I watch Artosis a lot. I've already told him that sometimes when he's like sieging or unsieging tanks or laying mines, he ends up spending like 10 seconds doing that. Now, it is important to have your tanks in siege and be in a good position and have mines set up in a good position, but to be doing that for that long, where, so for example, let's say you spend 10 seconds doing that. A vulture takes 25 seconds to build, tank takes 45 seconds to build. So if you spend 10 seconds, essentially all those factories that could have made vultures, when you're playing Terran vs Protoss, let's say you have 10 factories, you probably have like 3 add-ons and 6 or 7 factories without add-ons. Those are 6 vultures that aren't being made. Now maybe if you do it one time it's not a big deal, but let's say you like consistently are doing it, right? That means the second time you've almost missed a complete cycle. You do it 3 or 4 times, you've missed 2 cycles. It adds up, right? Now I know sometimes you don't have the money to do that, to build units, so then you can kind of afford to spend all that time positioning your stuff. But once it gets to the late game, you can't sit there and spend half an hour laying mines and sieging, unsieging, because Protoss doesn't have to think about that. They just have to really stasis and just throw their units at you, right? So, I mean, there's more to it than that, but I'm just saying. That's what I did today when I was in single player all day. Since I couldn't find games practicing for the event, I just went into single player, and 5 racks is my most practiced build, so I was going to do that every game if possible, as long as there's no 2-hatch or anything. So I just went into single player, probably did it like 10 times, just hit all my timings that I talked about earlier with, build the eBay after the depot and then academy when the command center, etc. I just went and did that, like nailed it constantly, working on that. And then I tried to make sure that I wasn't looking too long at anything. Now since it was single player, what the hell am I doing if I'm looking somewhere, right? So I made sure I was hitting my macro, but I was playing versus a computer, so I was microing my SCV as long as possible to kind of simulate a real game where Zerglings, you know, are going to be attacking your SCV if you're in their base. But other than that, I just really tried to make sure I didn't miss macro, didn't miss depots, hit my build order. And I think it showed in my Circuit Breaker game that I was playing pretty good in that game. And it's kind of unfortunate. Game 2 was kind of clowny. Game 3, like I said before, I think just not enough add-ons, not enough tanks, and then this one Lurker Defiler drop just... I spent too much time having to deal with those 2 units. Yeah, we can look at that game. Because, see, I haven't seen the game yet. Well, I mean, I played it right, but I didn't actually see it. But yeah, that game I felt like I couldn't lose, basically. Like, I was hitting everything. Well, almost everything. That's why I kept just attacking top left, because even though it wasn't optimal, it was just like, okay, I'm just gonna kill you. Eventually, you will not be able to cast Arc Swarm for eternity. Yeah, Gypsy, I'm still streaming. Where's your stream? It's easy to get way ahead in supply Terran vs. Zerg, but it doesn't actually mean anything, because you can't actually kill them because of the Defiler. See this SCV, 22 depot, right? This is going to build the eBay. There he goes, eBay. Gas is done, send SCVs. Command Center done, Academy builds. So easy to remember. Start +1, pull off SCVs. Make sure you just hit your depots, hit your barracks. Make sure you keep building SCVs. Don't cut SCVs ever. Artosis was doing that for a while. Had to tell him, stop doing that. I know mutas are coming, so I got my turrets. Now, you know I was talking about 7:30-ish factory. I don't even have to look at the clock because I see my +1 weapon is about to finish. So I know my factory timing is coming soon. Did I get +1 armor? Start +1 armor. Yeah, I sent the SCV out. You see, this was going to build the factory, but I actually never built it. Well, I didn't build it yet. Now I realize. But that SCV was coming out to build the factory. When you build the factory, you build your gas. Now factory's done. I always put my starports up here because they're easily defended. They can't just harass them over here. Now one thing that you do have to, one time you do have to pay attention to the clock is at about 11:30 is when you start lifting all your barracks. If you keep building Marines, it's just wasted money. You don't want to do that. The only reason I built dropships, well see, I actually thought he was going to have overlords here, so I didn't directly send my dropships this way. So that's unfortunate. I could have just ended him. But anyway, oh, we missed it. Let's see my science facility. Timing. Let's watch this SCV. This SCV is building the science facility. After the science facility, build that armory. Does he go and build it? Do it. Oh, there he goes. See? It's just easy to remember. Just go into single player, do this over and over and over. Or that's what I do, and it's helped me a lot. This was a botched attack, a botched move out. I wasn't expecting them to be there. I guess I should have when he only had 2 here. It was kind of weird to me that there were only 2 there. But then when I scanned and saw he still had 3 here, I thought, okay. And then, you know, he obviously has some here. I was like, okay, well, guess he just doesn't have anything. My factories are a little off, but doesn't matter because I have such, like, huge map control right now. I kept 1A, 2A. I kept, see, these are bouncing back and forth. I accidentally, for some reason, I kept moving them up here for some reason. Wow, did I get it? Wow, I literally just got it at the last second. I mean, that didn't matter, really, in this game, because I'm just crushing. But in some games, that would be a huge deal. Imagine if it was armor. See, this is what I'm talking about with my macro. These two right here aren't really macroing at all. This factory's not macroing. That could have been tanks. I realize you can't have perfect macro all the time, but, you know, there's not really, I wasn't really doing much, so I shouldn't have mismacroed. And this is what I saw, you know, where I was just constantly attacking top left, because I already knew that, like, there's just no way he can stop me. He's got +4, I've got +2. I actually forgot to build my second armory for a while. But it's good to have +2 here, because I'm going to hit +3 at around 21 minutes, which is good. How many games could I beat Flash? Literally 0. Now, I have, so when I was playing on West, I did play Flash, and I beat him the first game I played him on Rush Hour, and then I lost the next 2, and then we played Arcadia, and he picked Zerg in that match, and he actually crushed me. So overall, I'm 1-3 all time versus Flash, but I did win the first game. But right now, how many games would Flash win versus me? He'd win 100 of them. People don't know how hard it is to play pros. Like, literally when I was playing on West, you know, the clan leader would set me up with games, and he'd be like, oh, just play, you know, Joe Schmo 85. And Joe Schmo 85 would actually be like a god. Like, just insane. Like, the best player you've ever played. And then you play Joe Schmo 86, and he's better than Joe Schmo 85. It's like nuts. And then you find out that these people aren't even pros. They're just practice partners. I mean, obviously they're close to pro, but they're not pros. So it's like, okay, I'm losing to people that aren't even pro? What? So then, like, then you play like an actual pro, and then they crush you even harder. It's like unreal. It literally put me into a depression because I'd played so many years and gotten pretty good, and then to just get smashed. Like, literally when I say 100-0, that is what would happen. You would lose 100-0. It's just unreal how much better they were back then. Now, with the FP VODs, foreigners, like, have a chance to get good, but they're still never going to reach, like, Flash level or whatever. You know, no one's going to reach Flash level, but you know what I'm saying? Like, even, like, 50% win rate or 40% win rate, they'll never reach that, ever. But they do have a better chance now. Back then, where you either had to be friends with a pro or have some kind of hookup where you could get the replays. When Flash invented his 2-1 Flash build on Katrina, I actually had the original replay because the clan leader gave it to me. These days, people might win. Like, for example, Scan, right? Scan's Korean, but, you know, people view him as a foreigner because he plays with foreigners, right? Not all the time, but I'm just giving an example. There's a game where he played versus Flash, and he was playing sick. He like had Flash, like, in a good spot, but then he ended up losing. If people can get to Scan's level, there's a good chance that the 100-0 I'm talking about wouldn't happen. Maybe it would be like 90-10, something like that. And with FP VODs and stuff out, that can happen. But back then, near impossible. Like, my specialty matchup back then was Terran vs. Terran, so even at my best matchup, I still only won 1 out of 2. And back then, when they introduced me to Flash, they said this guy's the best Terran vs. Zerg on the server. Right? They didn't say he's the best Terran vs. Terran, they just said this guy's got the best Terran vs. Zerg on the server. No, I don't have any of those replays anymore because I've had to format my hard drive and stuff. So I don't have any proof that this actually happened, but you'll just have to believe me. Also, Koreans are like super serious, obviously. So when I was playing on West, they would, clan leader would set me up with some people, right? And I remember there's a guy, his name was M-Fo-U, so this, was it M-Fo-U, right? So he's a Terran. Me and him played. He's one of the best Terrans I've ever played, right? We had like very close game. I think I won. I can't remember, but it was very close, right? So I ended up adding him to friends list. At the time, I was playing Lineage and Brood War at the same time, but I was kind of leaning towards Lineage because I had played Brood War for a while, and I was kind of getting like kind of bored of it, and also it's like depressing to just get crushed over and over again, right? So I didn't play for 3 days. Like, I didn't log in to Battle.net for 3 days. He removed me from my friends list because I didn't log in those 3 days. So they're really serious. If you don't log in, you're off friends list. Back then you could only have 25 friends, so people were highly selective of who they had on their list.